Hello, good day everyone. I'm Gadox, and we're back with another Mobile Legends video, this time covering a new patch. Finally, on the official server, where some revamps or many changes that were expected have arrived, which were already in the advanced server. Honestly, there are many that could even be considered revamps, even though in the patch itself they aren't listed as revamps, but for me they pretty much are. So we're going to be reading these notes, and I'll also give you my opinion about them. And so we start with one of the most anticipated revamps, which is Freya's. So in her passive, we have the power of Heimher. I think that's how you pronounce it. Well, it says Freya can store up to 6 sacred orbs. Each basic attack grants a sacred orb, and they gradually recover when she's out of combat. Consuming a sacred orb grants Freya a 100% attack speed bonus for her next basic attack. Next, we have her first skill, Valkyrie Shield Binding. Freya jumps to the targeted area and strikes the ground with her shield, gaining a shield and dealing physical damage to enemies within the area, knocking them into the air. Moving on to her second skill, Valkyrie Slash. Freya charges forward and attacks with a slash, dealing physical damage. This skill has no base cooldown but uses 2 sacred orbs each time. Now onto her ultimate, Valkyrie Descent. Freya selects a target area and dives in, dealing physical damage and slowing enemies along the path and at the landing point. Upon landing, Freya enters Valkyrie state, during which her basic attacks deal increased damage, restore hit points, and deal splash damage. Well, honestly, this change to Freya is quite interesting. Was it necessary? I think so, because Freya might be used in competitive play or high elo, but in solo queue or regular ranked games, she wasn't really being considered much. So we'll see what happens with this revamp. She might end up super overpowered, I can't say for sure, but I'm gonna try her out and see what happens. But this new mechanic they've added to Freya is interesting. Now let's continue with Hilda's revamp. Yes, it's not officially called a revamp, but to me, it pretty much is. It says, Hilda's minion clearing efficiency and durability in the late game are low. She relies on bushes to trigger her passive, resulting in average performance in the experience lane. This time, we redesigned Hilda's passive skill, replacing her first skill's enhanced basic attack from entering a bush to boost her experience, lane presence, and minion clearing. Meanwhile, the first skill has been redesigned to grant a shield and speed boost, reducing her dependence on bushes. We have also optimized the control experience of basic attacks after the second skill, improving passive stacking efficiency and combo smoothness. To balance this, we have reduced how much the passive nature mark lowers physical and magical defense. So now, in her renewed passive, it would be revamped. When entering a bush, Hilda enhances her next basic attack to deal 140 plus 70% of total physical attack, plus 9 per hero level of physical damage points, and slow the target by 40% for 3 seconds. Enemies behind the target take 70 plus 50% of total physical attack, plus 7 per hero level in physical damage. After using this enhanced basic attack, it enters a 6-second cooldown. The chase speed of the enhanced basic attack increased from 10 to 13. And each stack reduces the target's physical and magical defense by 4%, which has now changed to 3%. Then, in her first skill, also revamped, Hilda activates the runic power of her giant axe, increasing her movement speed by 60% and gaining a shield equal to 10 to 20% of her maximum hit points for 3 seconds. Then, in her second skill, the cooldown of Forest Wing on the third attack of the second skill was reduced by 33%, and in her ultimate, the chase range of the ultimate was optimized and its hit rate was increased after locking on. Well, here they clearly say that what they want to do with Hilda is to have her used more in the experience lane, so that she's not used as a roamer anymore, because Hilda was being used almost exclusively as a roamer hero. So they don't like that. They want her to be used in the experience lane. Honestly, I don't agree with this approach because, for me, Hilda as a roamer was fine. She was a meta hero. I mean, as a roamer, she did really well, and she was doing great in the meta, so I don't know why they're changing her now to an experience lane hero. As a roamer, she was fine for me. But well, we'll see what happens. Next, and maybe one of the most controversial ones, we have Javier. Javier must keep hitting enemies with his first and second skills to level up and enter Transcendence for more damage. This doesn't align with our design expectations, so we've increased the width of all his skills. By changing Stage 1 to a permanent passive and removing the original effect of Stage 2, Javier can enter the Transcendent state more quickly. To balance this, we've shortened his second skill's immobilization duration. So, in his passive, when Javier hits an enemy hero with his skills, he gains 50% movement speed, which decays over 1.2 seconds. Each enemy hero hit by Javier's skills generates an energy stack. When he reaches 3 stacks, his next skill cast enters Transcendence state. Then we have his first skill. The skill width in normal state changed from 0.6 to 0.9. And the mana cost changed from 50 to 75 to 30 to 55. Then, for his second skill, the immobilization time changed from 1.2 seconds to 0.8 seconds. The width of the skill in its normal state changed from 3.5 to 4.3, but the width of the skill in Transcendent state changed from 5 to 4.3. And in the ultimate, the width of the skill in normal state changed from 2.2 to 3.0. And the width of the skill in Transcendent state changed from 3.8 to 3.0. Well, personally, I didn't like this change. It was on the advanced server. I thought they'd roll it back. First, they rolled it back, then reintroduced it on the advanced server, and finally released it on the official server. For me, it was exactly Xavier's potential that didn't convince Moonton. For me, the potential was always entering Transcendence mode and dealing more damage, and that all the abilities get improved both in width and in damage. But now they've decided that, well, the damage apparently will improve, but the width of the abilities will decrease. Also, the time it slows, well, that the ability immobilizes, which was, if I'm not mistaken, his second ability, the time his second ability immobilizes, they've also reduced it. I don't know if this is really a buff. For me, it's not, but I'd have to try it. But the first impression I have is that this doesn't improve Xavier. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's the first impression I get. But I'm gonna try it because I was using Xavier quite a lot, so I'll try it and then I'll definitely come to a final conclusion about whether this really improves him or leaves Xavier in a really, really bad spot. Next, we have Minotauro. As a roaming tank hero, Minotauro's ability to provide healing and buffs to his team far outweighs his own survivability as a tank. We want his combat ability to fit his character better. We updated the original Rage Regeneration effect that boosts the second skill, making it Minotauro's new passive to increase his combat durability. We've added slow effects to the first 2 hits of his ultimate to boost the airborne effect's hit rate on the final strike. To balance him, we've reduced Minotauro's ability to provide healing and buffs to allies. Although he's still a unique tank with the ability to heal teammates. So we have in his renewed passive, Minotaur is motivated for 3 seconds after using the skill. While enraged, his regeneration effect doubles. Motivation restores hit points equal to 5% of damage from enemy heroes, plus 1% per hero level. Then, in his second skill, we also have renewed healing range. Minotaur heals himself and all nearby allies. Now, it has changed to Minotaur heals himself and the nearest ally, with the lowest hit points. Additional recovery of lost hit points increased from 5 to 8%, and in the enraged state, it removes previous enraged effects. Now Minotauro heals himself and all nearby allies. And in his ultimate, the slow effect increased from 40 to 60%. The airborne knock-up duration was reduced from 1 second to 0.8 seconds. Well, this change was also a bit controversial because now Minotauro can't heal all his teammates all the time. Before he could do it, but now he can't. Now, only in his enraged state can he heal all his teammates. Otherwise, he'll only heal the ally with the lowest hit points percentage, but it seems he'll heal himself more often. I don't think this change is so bad. Because the thing with Minotauro right now was that even though he healed in early and mid-game, he was too squishy. Minotauro was more fragile than other tanks and easy to kill. So with this, they're trying to make Minotauro tougher, but at the same time not heal all his allies as much. They limited that a bit. So if you look at it from that point of view, I don't think this change to Minotauro is that bad. Now we have Atlas. Atlas's second skill and ultimate lack clear range indicators in real combat to determine if they can hit enemies. So we've adjusted the ranges of his passive, Frigid Breath, his second skill's Stun, and the first stage of his ultimate Slow are now fully consistent. Players can now use the visual effects circle of Frigid Breath as a range indicator for other skills, improving skill hit rates. Additionally, the increase in physical and magic defense from Atlas's passive can no longer scale with his economic growth. So we've adjusted its numerical structure to scale based on his additional hit points. To balance this change, we've slightly reduced the stun duration after Atlas returns to the mecha in his second skill. So in his passive, the range of Frigid Breath went from 2 to 3, and the increase in physical and magic defense went from 16 to 30 to 20, plus 0.5% of additional hit points. Then his second skill's damage and stun range after Atlas returns to the mecha increased from 2.5 to 3, and the stun duration after Atlas returns to the mecha went from 1 second to 0.8 seconds. In the ultimate, the first stage's slow range changed from 3.5 to 3. Well, more than anything, I think this change to Atlas's visual, as it says there, to help players be able to cast more ultimates. With Atlas, does it really make him better? I think it does, but I don't think it makes him super mega overpowered either. Although Atlas in good hands, I still think he's a good tank. Now we have Benedetta. When Benedetta's abilities hit consecutively, her sword concentration quickly stacks up to the maximum. However, holding down the basic attack button to enter the unsheathed sword state can affect the control experience when transitioning from skill combos to the sword slash. Therefore, we have reduced the detection time to enter the unsheathed sword state when holding down the basic attack button, allowing Benedetta to enter the state more quickly and improving the smoothness and responsiveness of the controls. Additionally, after dealing damage 3 times with basic attacks or skills, Benedetta's sword concentration meter stays slightly below full, affecting the controls of her sword slash combos. So, we've raised the sword concentration gained from dealing damage. Now it only takes 3 hits from basic attacks or skills to fully charge her sword concentration. We have also fixed an issue where Benedetta would continue charging her sword slash after being interrupted by control effects, which could cause her to unintentionally cast it once the control effect ended. Her passive now grants 34 sword concentration when dealing damage, up from 30. The detection time to enter the unsheathed sword state by holding down the basic attack button has been reduced by 40%. If Benedetta is interrupted by control effects while charging her sword slash, charging stops, and her current sword concentration is preserved. Once the control effect ends, she must press and hold the basic attack again to start charging. When Benedetta is in the unsheathed sword state and is controlled, while her sword concentration is decreasing, her unsheathed sword state will be interrupted and restored to full sword concentration. After the control effect ends, she needs to hold down the basic attack again to enter the charging state. Well, basically, it would be a change to her passive. And I think with this, they're trying to make Benedetta much easier to handle. Because for me, Benedetta is one of the heroes. One of those assassins that's not very easy to play well, to really handle well. But the one who plays Benedetta well is very tough. I mean, she's really overpowered. If you know how to play Benedetta well, for me, she's an assassin that's super broken. And with this, I think they're going to make her even more broken. From what I'm reading, even though I'm not a main, it's going to be easier to handle Benedetta. And for me, Benedetta is an assassin that's overpowered. So we'll see what happens. If they don't leave her excessively broken, I think they're going to have to nerf her again. But we'll see. If you're a Benedetta main, tell me, what do you think about this buff? Now let's continue with Martis. We're increasing Martis's damage in the mid to late game. In his passive, the extra attack with full stacks increased from 6 to 8 per hero level. And for his ultimate, the damage went from 800 up to 1000, plus 100% of total physical attack, to 700 up to 1100, plus 120% of total physical attack. The visibility of the target indicator for his ultimate was also improved, and we have a new effect for the ultimate as well. The hero's penetration damage will contribute to triggering indicator effects on the target. Well, a buff for Martis. which I think he needed because he was left quite behind compared to other heroes, mainly about the jungle. Martis was super overpowered at one point, and now he was totally forgotten. So with this buff, which I think is pretty good, I believe Martis will be back in the meta. Now let's move on to another revamp, in this case, Balmod's. Our goal is to slightly raise Balmod's ceiling in high-level matches. On his first skill, new effect. Hitting an enemy hero reduces their physical defense by 40% for 3 seconds. Also, the slow effect changed from 60% for 2 seconds to 40% for 3 seconds. And the cooldown changed from 8 to 5 seconds to 8 to 6 seconds. Honestly, I think this buff to Balmod is pretty good. At one point, Balmod was also super overpowered. He was in the meta. Then he disappeared again. And I think with this buff, it's very likely that Balmod will be back in the meta. Next, let's discuss Harley. His mobility and ultimate controls are now better. For his second skill, the cooldown went from 11 to 8 seconds to 8 to 6 seconds. A new effect. Using the second skill to return to the hat no longer cancels the movement speed boost. His ultimate now has a new effect. Enemy heroes can no longer block the Ring of Fire, and the Forest Wing, which is the knockback, went from 0.4 seconds to 0.33 seconds. Also, the knockback slow effect slows enemies by 40% for 1.5 seconds. It now slows enemy heroes by 40% for 1.5 seconds, decreasing to 15% after 1.5 seconds. Well, honestly, Harley was pretty weak right now. He wasn't the same Harley as before, so I think he did need a buff. Will this buff be enough? Well, I'm not a Harley main, so if you are a Harley main, tell me if you think this buff is enough or not. And finally, among the revamped or buffed heroes, we have Faramis. The second skill's mana cost and the ultimate's controls were optimized to provide quicker hit point support for allies. For his second skill, the mana cost went from 75 to 125 down to 45 to 70. And in his ultimate, the Forest Wing was removed. Well, is this buff enough for Faramis? Honestly, Faramis is pretty forgotten right now, so I think maybe this buff isn't enough. And well, guys, that's it for all the important changes regarding the buffed or revamped heroes. Leave your opinion in the comments. Also, if this video gets support, I'll bring you a second part, reading and also giving my opinion about the heroes that were nerfed in this same patch. I didn't want to do it all in one video because otherwise it would be too long and I don't want to bore you too much either. So I'm reading your comments, and if you liked it, give it a like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye.